J.D. Vance has said that he would veto it if it did come to us.
Well, I did discuss it with J.D. in all fairness. J.D., and I don't mind if, and a lot of other people that I have friends, they can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. So wonderful, let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade, and as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President.
Excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month? Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask me that question?
Why don't you
That's
answer
the
the
problem.
question? Would you
Because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer the
Wade,
question.
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th month, and probably after birth. Just look at the governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual. I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's
Let's go upstairs. They pretty live upstairs. Trump will come out of who y'all
You will
vote.
see during the course of his rallies, he talks about
Live upstairs. This what a part.
windmills cause cancer. And what you'll also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early.
It's crowded. Kamala supporters here. We got one.
Going them in a different light. So,
All right, so we had to go back downstairs. Kind of went out on this.
In the history of politics, that's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years
we got
ago.
two
And
Trump supporters in the
what's
room.
going on here, you're going to end up in World War III.
Now we
just
got
to go
3
to
Trump
another
supporters
subject.
in the room. Look,
What
okay,
they have
everybody
done to our
going for
country
Trump.
by allowing
Okay.
these millions and
got another
millions
Trump
of
supporter
people
standing
to
right
come into our
beside me.
country. And look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. A lot of towns don't
Trump
want to
is the
talk about it.
best.
It's going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it.
Trump or
In
Kamala, what y'all wanna
Springfield,
do?
they're eating the dogs. The people they're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back.
Kamala, okay, Sir Ebbs and Flows, I hear you.
Phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country. And if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
Kamala.
You bring up Springfield.
We got about 5 Trump supporters.
You did reach out to the city
2
manager
Kamala
there, and he
supporters.
told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being
Y'all tell me who y'all voting for.
by individuals within the community.
People on television.
Let me just say here, this is the
People on television said my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager. But the people on television said the dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, I'm speaking for the city manager, says there's no evidence of that. That's what
This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election.
I think we should stay single for a while. I like that. Figure ourselves out.
Republicans who have
None of
formerly
them are
worked
fit.
with
I
President
can
Bush,
dig that.
Mitt Romney, and
But
John
love
McCain,
ourselves, huh?
including the
Latasha Joyner,
endorsement of
yeah.
former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if you didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation.
So we live when y'all come in, tell me who y'all voting for, don't be shy.
Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear on this election.
President Trump will give you a quick minute to respond.
Yeah, thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously, they did bad things or bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people. Because
Trump,
that was
okay,
one of the most
round of Coleman. I got a lot of Trump supporters in here.
anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper, he was no good, I fired him, so he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me they can write books, with nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job. Fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation.
Thank you for doing it live. I'm at work and didn't think I would be able to see. Yep, so you at work? Yeah, appreciate you. Us not really for women's, maybe for the next 4 years. Us not. Oh yeah, U.S. Yeah, a lot of people can feel that. You know, a lot of countries will try us because a woman is president.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal. that the vice president has reacted to as well.
That's not ready for women. Y'all let me know who y'all voting for when you come in.
History of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you have no problem using the U.S. military.
Shout out to Pier 34 too, man. They host
How
some
would
late
you
party.
deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah.
Kamala,
It is much
Sarah,
higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals.
100%.
They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country, and they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. You know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down. You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to
toilet
put
bowl.
into our country.
All right.
This will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow, and I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all.
Immigration
They've
crisis.
destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people.
How do y'all
live in
feel about the
all over
immigration?
world. Crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite
11
their
million
fraudulent statements that they
undocumented
made, crime in this country is
That's a lot of
through the
people.
roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called
only 23
migrant crime.
million
And it's happening at levels that nobody
African-American,
thought
they
possible.
say.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says
33
overall
million,
violent
one of them.
crime is actually coming down in this country.
Trump is
But-
just leadership. A lot of people feel that way.
Defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud. Just
I
like their
agree.
number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear, where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move
Okay, y'all let me know
that
who
we
y'all
turn the
voting
page
for when you come in.
on this
Trump or
same
Kamala.
old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what
You
we
going,
must do
Ty?
to support our small businesses, address
okay.
bringing down the price
good
of
to see you.
groceries. But frankly, the American people are
yeah, you gotta
exhausted
ask Pat
with
for
the
that.
same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me.
That big sign, I
Every
just-
one of those cases was
If she
started
gets
by
elected,
them
we are in
against their
trouble. A lot of
political
people feel that way.
opponent.
A lot of
And
people
winning
feel
most
that
of
a lot of
them, and
nations
win the
will
rest of the people.
not respect
And we
us
saw
for
that
woman
with the decision
leadership.
that came down just recently
Kim
from the Supreme
Jong-un,
Court.
Putin, and
I
all
really
those
was
guys.
But
A lot of
those are
people feel that.
cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to
What is
the
your option?
Attorney General of New York and the DA
Like the
of New
other
York.
person said,
Every one
you know,
of
we
those
should be
cases.
single for a while.
And then
Take some time to
they
love on
said,
ourselves.
Oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. Now, what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it
What's my
to try
opinion?
and win an election.
Yeah,
They're
neither of
fake
these
cases.
guys really float my boat. You know what I'm saying?
Well, let's
None
talk
of
about
them.
extreme and
Politicians,
understand the
period.
context
You
in
know,
which this
both of
election
them
of
are there right
2024
now
is taking
saying
place.
everything that
The
they
United States Supreme
been
Court
programmed to say to
recently
get elected
ruled
and
that
make
the
the other
former
person
president
bad.
would essentially be immune from
Canel
any
Joseph for
misconduct if
president.
he were to enter the White House again.
Yeah, we might.
Understand, this is someone who has
who else?
openly said he
Charles
would
Barkley
terminate,
for
I'm
president.
quoting,
I
terminate
take Charles
the
Barkley over
Constitution of the
any one of
United
these.
States. That he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. someone who has
Who you
openly
vote for.
expressed disdain
Yeah, probably.
for
Might
members
sit
of
this
our
one out.
military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails. Because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice
To stop
President
him.
Harris. Thank you. Lindsay?
I had no
President
problem.
Harris, in your last run for president,
We got
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the
Everyone should
head
vote, yeah.
because of the things that
Took a bullet to the head. Okay, he's going with the simple.
Let's, they're the threat to democracy. Was a fake
Let's walk back up here and see if we can. She's bringing some stuff not right. Look at borders and see how bad now. Yeah.
You said you wanted to ban fracking, now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons, now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings, now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed, so then why have so many of your policy positions
She
changed?
said her values. I like that. I
My
like
values
that.
have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States, and in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign
That bull
oil.
crap.
We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that
Crap. You said that's crap?
recognizes that we cannot over-rely on
So
foreign
y'all
oil.
don't believe her?
As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid, raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then 5
Okay.
is a value
Okay.
that I bring to my work, to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend
Yeah,
when I was
she
in high
needs to
school
go
who was
back.
sexually
I
assaulted
think
by
she
her
was born
stepfather. And
she
my
was born in
focus
Canada,
then
right?
on protecting women and children from violent
I think she
crime
was
is
born in
based on a
Canada.
value that is deeply grounded in the
Shout out to
importance of standing
shout out
up
to
for
the Pier
those who are
34
most
man for
vulnerable.
holding this.
My work
Let me see if I
that
can go
is about
upstairs with this
protecting
camera
Social
without
Security
losing
and
signal
Medicare
real quick. Let me
is
show
based
y'all.
on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down. And name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I
First thing
intend
they
to
did
lead
was shut
that
down the
president.
Keystone Pipe.
President Trump,
Well, first of all, I wasn't going to $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father. I learned a lot from him, but I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now. Just off the video.
Shout out to the Pier 34.
In Minnesota, they wanted to let criminals, they killed people, they burned down Minnesota.
Trump, okay.
She went
USA
out of
hard.
her way trying to
Trump.
get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that will do this. She wants to confiscate the
Trump
guns,
again,
and she
okay.
will never
A lot of
allow
Trump
fracking in
supporters in there.
Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing, so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead, we'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar.
Not slow or die fast. How you gonna die?
400, 500 acres of desert. These are the things for the environment. They should.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk
She
about
needs
the
to go
peaceful
back to
transfer of
California. So much
power,
talk
transfer of
about
democracy, and the role of the president in a moment of crisis.
Pick your words, die slow or die fast.
Supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there.
Okay, here we go with January the 6th. What do you got to say?
That day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are
You will never
into our
tell the
country
true
and
story.
killing
So what's the
people
true
that she
story,
allowed
Miss
to
Tracy?
border? She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America, they're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world, and
Just
crime
for
rates are
another
down all over the world because of it. When are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted?
Anybody staying home?
They went into Seattle, they took over a big percentage of the
What if they
city of
can't
Seattle.
decide?
When are those people going to be prosecuted? You might ask me that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television.
Yeah, that's what the lady said. She said, not even sure I'm voting for it now, but I know I have to pick the right poison come November the 4th.
Yes, sir.
I had nothing to do with that other than
Pick the right
I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me, it was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their job. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question is about you as president, not about former speaker.
What y'all think about January the 6th?
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
Was a different that was where Floodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jessica, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing it? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, this has been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed, you'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you say, come on down to the office, let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed. Those people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue because it really brings us this focus truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short. Are you now acknowledging that you
gave more money and more resources and manpower? Save America, vote for Trump.
That was said sarcastically.
Got a lot of Trump supporters in the room.
There's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what they're doing.
Vote for Trump. Trump 2024.
And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We need to go back to
Who I'm voting for? Yes, Trump. Yes, Trump.
Many judges, many of them.
No judge looked at it. They said we didn't have
Go back to
standing.
Cali.
That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing, the president of the United States doesn't have standing? That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I love that we do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you, we have so many facts and statistics. You know what? That doesn't matter, because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's all news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker, so he still believes he did not lose the election. That was from President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us, we won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom work with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused.
What did he say?
Let me just tell you world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid. And I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look,
So,
Viktor Orban, he said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We have no
I don't know what to be doing when I be going to sleep.
But when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if you weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand.
This person says, God bless Donald J. Trump.
Turning now to the Israel Hamas.
Why did they say that? I don't know. Why did they say that? They just said, God bless Donald J. Trump.
Vice President Harris in December said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but he added, quote,
No, this person says, God bless Donald J.
international
Trump.
humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians.
He says, God bless Donald J. Trump. See, look.
Estimated 40,000
Tell him that God bless him too.
Nearly 100
God bless him.
hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 2nd, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and I'm sure president either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people.
What you drinking?
Far worse than people understand what's going on. When she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She went to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way,
Clown is an
she hates
embarrassment to the human
population
race.
because the whole place
Angela Wilson.
is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I'm going to get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
No, that's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is, it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants in going to Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. These dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with and that is why military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on national security, including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
And she's the one that caused it. That's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just asked one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and ineffective. And Biden, by the way, gets paid a lot of money.
Thank you, we have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia.
Is that it? That's the end? Oh yeah, I think that should be the end, fellas. I don't think I can take no more. I don't think I can take no more, much more of this. I don't think I can take no more. We had Councilwoman Jamie Taylor up here at the Democratic Convention. We got a lot. This is the Democratic Convention of Goldsboro. You see Miss D'Antonio right there in the background. This is Democratic Convention of Goldsboro, North Carolina. How you doing? Shout out to Pier 34 again. You know, they're doing their thing out there. What's happening? How you doing? I don't think I can take too much more of this though. I don't think I can take too much more. Get on out of here.
HD cameras so you can see what's happening in your home from anywhere.
Talk to you.
That's technology. Exclusively from SimpliSafe. Faster pace response. SimpliSafe today will start your life. Approach that help. Easily do it yourself. There's no safe like SimpliSafe.
So yeah, man. I can't take no more of this. So I think I'm about to go and do something productive with my time, my life. But thank y'all for tuning in. I can't watch no more of this thing. But y'all be blessed. Peace and love.